Now all these Real quick, this video is brought to you by Charlie Dapper. It's not sponsored or anything, but they sent this out to me to try out, give them a review. So at the end of this video, if you guys care about hair stuff, there is going to be a quick hair review or review of this product at the very end. I know. It's been a long time. What's up guys? Tyler Yasuda here, back again with another video. If you're wondering about video production frequency, I do have time blocked out every week to do this. The thing is, I'm having a hard time coming up with ideas that I feel like are actually valuable or would be valuable information for you guys to actually get something from these videos. I don't want to just upload, training vlogs every week. Like I do enjoy doing that as kind of like a sort of scrapbook for myself, but it's just not that good. It's not going to be really valuable things for you to learn from as much as, hopefully a video like this. So if you have ideas, drop me a comment. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, Tyler Yasuda, shoot me a comment down there as well, or over there if you have any good video ideas, and I will gladly turn those into videos for you guys. Without delaying any further, let's just hop into this video. All right, so often, whether it be on an initial consult with a prospective client or just somebody in my regular life who approaches me because they know this is what I do for a living, I hear people say things like, my diet isn't working, or I can't gain weight, or I can't lose weight. And first of all, yes, it's certainly possible. You might have some, disorder or some genetic issue that is holding you back, preventing you from making those changes that you want to make. And if that is the case, that's something you should talk to your medical doctor about. But for the vast majority of us, that is simply not it. So before I get into this video too much, I do want to go over some basic principles to make sure we understand that at a base level first. If these are already things you've heard of and you understand very well, feel free to skip through because I'm just going to be beating a dead horse at this point for some of you. Bottom line is, calories in versus calories out determines whether or not you can gain or lose weight. Let's start at maintenance. So if you were to consume the same number of calories that your body needs in a day or that your body uses in a day, you would essentially be at maintenance. The difference would be zero and you would be staying roughly at the same weight. Now there is going to be day-to-day change. If you're weighing yourself every single day, you're still going to see a scale change back and forth, but that's going to be more so from things like water, sodium, food mass, regardless of calorie amount. So many different transient factors come into play for individual weigh-ins, but the average over time, if you were to graph out those numbers, it would be roughly flat in that case of maintenance. Now if you consume more calories than you are using, you will be in a surplus. You'll be eating more than you need, so you will be gaining weight in that case, and the larger the size of that surplus, the faster you'll gain weight. The opposite is true the other way around. So if you burn more calories than you consume, then you will be losing weight, and the size of that deficit now determines how quickly you will be losing weight. Now an important note here is that the distribution of weight change should matter to all of us. I've never worked with somebody who said to me, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds of muscle, or hey man, in this diet up, let's try to build 20 pounds of fat. It's always, when we're gaining weight, we always want to talk about building muscle while kind of avoiding unnecessary fat gain. And when we're losing weight, we really want to be maximizing fat loss while minimizing muscle loss, or just maximizing muscle retention. So the things that will affect the distribution of that change are, first and foremost, the rate of change. So we talked about how the size of deficit and surplus influence how fast you lose or gain. That also will help determine how much of that weight is going to be fat, how much is going to be muscle. For example, if we assume there is a maximum rate at which you can gain muscle, if you were to exceed that rate, eating more food on top doesn't force your body to grow faster, or doesn't force your body to grow muscle faster. It just allows you to store more energy and store more fat on top. So, overeating or eating into too large of a surplus, all you're doing is changing the proportion of weight gain, where you're now gaining more fat for every amount of muscle that you gain. On the way down, if you were dieting down, trying to lose fat, the faster, and this is generally true, there are certain instances where it's not, but as you diet down, the faster you lose weight, generally the higher your risk for muscle loss is going to be as well. I mentioned some other special cases, like if you were fairly obese, like your body fat was really high, you could actually probably lose fat rapidly while still building muscle, but we're going to assume that you're not there. Second factor there is going to be training efficacy. So how effective your training is at producing that growth or that hypertrophy response is going to be very important here. When you're dieting up, obviously, making sure that your training is effective is going to make sure that you actually can use that extra food to be building muscle. Whereas if you were in a surplus without any training stimulus at all, you would probably only be gaining fat, maybe very, very tiny bit of muscle. But training needs to be, you need to have some sort of stimulus to make sure you're actually building muscle. On the way down, same thing is still sort of true, where you're not necessarily going to be in the mindset of building muscle, but having that stimulus will ensure that you retain as much muscle as you can while you lose weight. So you can kind of hold on to more muscle, make sure that you're maximizing fat loss. The third thing here is distribution of calories. A lot of people know this already, but you want to make sure you have a certain amount of protein in your diet when you are manipulating your weight, especially when you're dieting down, if you'd like to retain muscle. Carb and fat distribution does matter, not as much as we once thought, especially not in the short term, so I won't get too much into that, but bottom line is that the distribution, like how much of your calories are coming from protein, how much are coming from carbs, and how much are coming from fat, that does matter, it does make a difference as far as controlling for how much of your weight loss or weight gain is muscle and how much is fat. Now, the reason I want to go through all that stuff first is because if your diet is not working, I want you to check through those things first and make sure you have those all sorted. There's a good chance that you don't, and if you do, and you still feel like you can't figure out why your diet's not working, we'll proceed to the next step. That said, even if your diet is producing the sort of change that you want, I'd encourage you to make sure you understand these things, understand how your diet is working, because if you don't have that understanding, it's going to be very difficult for you to continue to see results or to even replicate results in a future diet. All right, so let's say that you've done the math, you crunched the numbers, everything on paper works out, in principle it's solid, and you just can't produce the result that you're looking for. The next thing I would look into is adherence. The thing is, guys, doesn't matter how good your diet is, doesn't matter how optimal it is, what crazy new idea you're running with, none of that matters if you can't stick to your plan. So we have to make sure we find a plan that's reasonable. The way I would go about doing this is I generally ask people, what sort of result are you expecting to get in what amount of time, right? So we set up kind of a timeline a lot of times. We'll set up a timeline just because it's a simple way, a very tangible way to perceive kind of where you're going or where you want to go. The next question you want to ask yourself is, what sort of work are you willing to do? What sort of work are you capable of doing consistently? You want to make sure that you kind of find the middle of both of those factors. So how fast do you want to progress, and what sort of work are you going to be able to do consistently? Those two things kind of have to match up, because if you want really fast results, you're going to have to work a lot more, a lot harder than if you said you were cool with making slow, steady progress. You can probably get away with doing a little bit less work, a little bit less precisely. But yeah, I would encourage most people to find the middle, or if you're not willing to make that compromise for the middle, figure out what's more important to you. Is your rate of progress more important, or is maintaining your lifestyle more important? The key here is there's going to be compromise anyway. Like, you're going to have to find some middle ground, but where you fall on that spectrum is really more so up to you, and your coach, if you have one, can kind of help you figure out what's most reasonable there. But really, you got to make that choice. You kind of want to make sure you stress test that. Make sure you try to follow that plan in the hardest of situations, because a lot of times that's where we fall apart, right? I've got a lot of guys and girls on my team that I'm coaching who they might do really, really well 5 days a week, right? And then the weekend rolls around and all of a sudden their diet kind of goes to shit, or they just forget about training entirely, or they max out for no reason. Whatever it is, straying away from your plan under pressure, under duress, under the long list of obligations that you have, it's not going to work out as well. So you want to make sure that you have a plan that works all the time, if at all possible, or if not possible, develop a plan B. Have a secondary plan you can go to where even if you are taking off track a bit, you can stay closer to your structure, stay closer to your plan so as not to compromise results too much. A great example of that is if you have somebody, let's say, tracking calories, maybe you have them set up pretty hard targets for the week, those 5 days, if you will, where they are working, they have a strict schedule. Easy enough, right? And the weekend rolls around, and now they have a lot more trouble with their diet. You might have them instead take a step back, regress that plan a bit if necessary, where maybe instead of tracking calories on MyFitnessPal, they're just food journaling, trying to be mindful of portion size, etc. Now, I'm not saying at all that's the best way to do it. It's just an example of incorporating a sort of regression into that plan, so that person will have a backup that they can use if they should need it, rather than just saying, oh, I'm off my plan, fuck it, I'll come back to it tomorrow. the next thing I'd look at is increasing the precision of your data collection so you can evaluate more accurately. For example, let's say if you have somebody who's tracking macros or tracking calories and you have them measuring their food, right? A lot of times people will think they get away with measuring their food volumetrically, so they use like measuring cups. But I mean, the thing is with measuring cups, you don't really know food mass, and that's really where we get a more accurate measurement. So we might have somebody switch from measuring volumetrically to measuring by mass, on a food scale. And yeah, sure, that's going to be a little bit more of a pain in the butt, but it'll be worth it if it means that you actually get the sort of result you're expecting to get from your diet. Another thing I'd encourage that you do here is have somebody else double check. So if you think you're following your plan perfectly and you're still not seeing that result, maybe have one of your buddies or maybe have your coach or whoever you have access to, have somebody double check. Go through everything that you're doing with your diet, your food journal, your food log, whatever it is, and make sure you're actually hitting those goals or targets that you set out in the first place. A lot of times I think people mess up their diet, they mess up their adherence unintentionally. They just either don't have enough experience logging their food or tracking their food, or maybe they're unintentionally or without thinking about it, adding in a few things here and there that is over time getting away from them and getting them away from their structure. So let's say in principle, diet is solid, adherence is perfect. The next thing I would look at, especially for those of you who've been dieting now for a while, and maybe are getting to a point where you're making moderate changes or you're not seeing the sort of expected result, or you just kind of feel like you're up against the wall and you can't continue to make change or you can't seem to produce change anymore. We want to talk about metabolic compensation to dieting. In short, as you diet down and as you continue to lose weight, your body will make compensations that end up making it harder to continue that sort of weight loss. Let's first talk about the total of our energy output in a day. Number one, we have RMR, which stands for resting metabolic rate. This is basically the amount of energy, the amount of calories that you use just, kind of being alive, your body functioning as it always would. It burns kind of a lot of calories. I'll put up a little graphic here if I can find a decent one. Number two, we have the thermic effect of food. This basically describes how much energy it takes for us to eat, digest, metabolize, and store whatever food that's coming in. And again, that can be quite significant depending on what you're eating. Next, we have NEAT, non-energy activity thermogenesis. This is basically describing all of the activity that you do that is not like deliberate training. That all burns calories, right? So let's say you're walking, to work, or cycling to work, or you're walking to class if you're a student. All these things will burn calories, and it does add up significantly over the course of a day, especially for some of you guys working more physical jobs. And then finally we have EAT, or energy, exercise, activity, thermogenesis. Pretty simple. This is energy you use when you're performing deliberate exercise, so when you're lifting weights, doing your cardio, etc. All of these factors do change considerably as you continue losing weight. First off, RMR, resting metabolic rate. Generally speaking, we can use lean body mass as a way to estimate your RMR. You'll see this a lot in calculators, right? Online, you'll type in your body weight, you'll type in your body fat percentage, etc. And it gives you RMR for those of you who are curious. And it's not that those numbers are always wrong. Very likely they could be, but the big thing here, especially when you're dieting, is that due to certain factors, we won't get into specific mechanisms, but certain things like your body's efficiency in regenerating ATP or changes in hormone production, they can change how much energy you need just to be alive and perform normal processes. So as we continue losing weight, our body's RMR does drop disproportionately to the amount of LBM that we've got. That is to say that as you continue dieting down, you essentially burn less and less calories just from the fact that you are losing weight. The thermic effect of food, this one seems very obvious, but you are going to burn less calories from eating food if you're eating less overall, which is going to be a requirement for you to lose weight. So if you are dieting down and you're continuing to diet down as you eat less over time, that TEF number is going to drop a bit as well. NEAT will decrease as well over time as we continue dieting down. Most of us become a little bit more lethargic. We have a little bit less energy to do stuff, so a lot of us get a little bit lazier. This is also a reason why a lot of times people who are prepping for bodybuilding shows, they might be doing a ton of cardio, but a lot of times those cardio changes become ineffective or kind of counterproductive because as you burn more calories in training, you tend to just do less outside of the gym. So it kind of balances out more or less. Energy, activity, thermogenesis. This is one that's probably going to be close to constant as you diet down. As long as you're not changing your training excessively as you're dieting down, if anything, EAT should be increasing over time as you add in things like cardio or maybe higher intensity workouts. So in total, the effect of all these changes is basically just that the cards are stacked against you as you continue dieting down. as you get deeper and deeper into that diet, it will become harder and harder for you to continue to lose weight, even if you're doing everything right. The main question people would ask is, what can we do about that? And there are a few things. Number one, I would say as you diet down, avoid making unnecessarily large changes to both your diet and exercise. I'm going to use the example of somebody tracking calories at the very least, if not tracking macros, just for simplicity's sake. So let's say you start off with a maintenance of 2,000 calories, and that's confirmed maintenance, like you know you maintain weight there for a while. Some people will start their diet down by making like massive drops, let's say like 800 calories, so they're going to go down to 1,200. And a lot of coaches do this, and that bothers me a little bit. Like, I get it, you want to produce results immediately, so you have that buy-in with your athlete, and you keep them on your team or whatever, but you know, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot by making an adjustment that large over time, fairly quickly in fact. Like, yes, you'll see really rapid weight loss, but your body will also adapt to that amount of food. It'll get to a point where you're going to lose enough weight, and your body's going to adapt and become more efficient until 1,200 is your new maintenance. Now at 1,200 maintenance, for you to continue losing weight, you're going to have to drop down further than that. So let's say you drop down another 800 calories, and now you're at, what, 400 calories. You'd starve. That's probably a bad example, it's very exaggerated, but my point is just that with those larger adjustments, oftentimes larger than necessary, whether that be for calorie drops or prescriptions of cardio, making those really huge jumps, it does kind of dig you a deeper hole, because if you could produce the same or a similar result by making a smaller change, all you're doing is giving yourself less room to continue adjusting past that point. Second thing here is diet breaks. Now this has become really, really popular, really trendy in the past like year or 2 years. And I will say there's quite a bit of research to back this up, that having intermittent periods of maintenance or surplus to break up your diet down, that can help you avoid these metabolic compensations we've talked about. That said, one possible drawback to a diet break, maybe two possible drawbacks. One is that a lot of people, after dieting for so long, when they get into that diet break, it's kind of like you hit a mental switch and the precision goes down the hole. So you have to make sure if you're going to do that, you stay on it as well as you normally would. Not any more than you normally would, but at least as good as you normally would be with precision. Second thing though is that having that diet break or adding that diet break in, let's say you have a intended diet down of like a total of 20 weeks. If you add in a 4-week diet break there, you're adding another 4 weeks. So in total time spent in that intervention is much longer. And nobody wants to spend their entire year dieting, even those of you who are trying to get super shredded for bodybuilding shows and such. The third thing, and probably most important for those of you watching this, is going to be knowing when to end your diet down. Now, metabolic adaptation or metabolic compensation does not mean that you can't lose weight. You absolutely can. Again, the principles of physiology, principles of nutrition still apply to you. It's just that it becomes harder and harder to continue losing fat over time. You get kind of to a point of diminishing returns where for you to continue producing that change, continue losing fat, it takes so much effort, so much compromise in your lifestyle that it just might not be worth it. So rather than dig yourself a deeper hole, rather than make things harder than they have to be, it might be most prudent for you to end your diet and consider making some changes on the way back up to tee yourself up or to set yourself up for a better diet in the future. So you might focus on things like recovering your metabolism, as in, getting back to a normal point where maybe you're gaining back some fat, but you also have a more normal amount of food intake. Increasing LBM is especially helpful. More LBM you have, higher RMR is, which also means you can consume more food on a regular basis and you're generally going to be more full. More than that though, having a higher LBM means that, and a higher maintenance number means that when you do diet down again, you have a lot more food to adjust with. Imagine starting a diet down from 3,000 calories versus a diet down from 2,000 calories. Obviously, starting at 3,000 is going to be a little bit easier, or not easier, but it'll give you more room to make adjustments on the way down. So to quickly recap, no matter what sort of diet you're using, that might be the Mediterranean diet, you might be tracking macros, you might be doing Atkins, Weight Watchers, whatever it is, make sure that your bases are covered, those basic principles that we discussed in the beginning. You should understand those so you can understand how your diet works and be sure that you're able to produce consistent results over time. Second thing, make sure your adherence is what you think it is. Like I said before, none of the plans you can possibly come up with will work very well if you don't follow them. Number 3, metabolic compensation. This is a very real thing. It's a very difficult thing for those of you dieting now for a long period of time who are doing everything right. At the end of the day, you get to that point of diminishing returns, it might be time to come back out of your diet, or at the very least, consider what you could do better next time. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. If you learned something, please give me a like or drop me a comment, whatever you guys do on YouTube nowadays. If you have ideas for future videos, like I said, shoot me a comment down below. And I guess that's all I got for now. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace. If you thought that was the end of the video, you were wrong, because in the beginning of the video I mentioned Charlie Dapper. It's a company based in New York. They sent this out to me, so full disclosure, I got this for free. But they wanted for me to try this out. Cool packaging. Water-based pomade. I have it in my hair right now. Wow, the light's terrible. Let's do this. I have it in my hair right now. I like it. I like the way it looks. Little bit of shine, it's kind of a medium shine, and as far as like the hold goes, it does really well. I just got back from the gym and it held up just fine. I like the fact that it's pretty pliable throughout the day, so I can run my fingers through my hair without getting stuck in there. If I need to kind of reshape it, I can. Since it's water-based, if I should need to like restyle my hair, it's pretty easy to do. And when it comes time to wash this out, it comes out real easy. I have had other stuff in the past. Some products that I really like that are waxes or even oil-based pomades that it just takes forever to wash out, so it's kind of inconvenient. But this stuff, not so much. As far as like the product goes compared to other stuff, I do like this. I don't generally use pomades though. My hair is like much longer than it normally is, usually. So I don't usually use pomades. My hair is usually kind of more like up rather than back. But since it is pretty long right now, this is kind of an appropriate fit for me at the moment. The only thing I would say about this product that I don't love is the fact that it's perfumed pretty strong. The girlfriend said that she likes the smell, so that's cool. But for me, it's just a little bit much, especially if you're wearing like, or if you generally wear cologne or something like that, or whatever your favorite fragrance is. If you're already wearing something and you are also putting this in your hair, that's gonna be way too much. So just a heads up. But anyway, thank you to the guys and I guess girls as well over at Charlie Dapper. I really appreciate the product. I will continue using it. And if you guys are interested to check it out, I'll put a link to their website down below.